Hi, BookTube. Hopefully, I'm going to be so annoyed if that thumbnail does not show up for my choices for thumbnails. But, so, give me a second. Okay, so, as you guys know, I'm participating in Sunday on 7, which is created by Grace from G Swizz Booktube channel. And the May 3rd topic is basically favorite books by booktubers that you want to read. And a lot of these are mostly fantasy, and there's other booktubers that I should, just thinking about this now as preparing to film it. I'm just thinking about other booktubers that I would love to, include in this, like Katie from Books and Things. She's another favorite. She's great for classics and more literary works, or what is considered literary, like historical fiction. But like one of the things I associate the books, an author I usually associate with her channel is Dickens. Sorry, I'm just okay. I'm just trying not to drop anything. Okay, so, I associate her with Dickens, but I did not include her on this. But yes, I love her channel. She, especially, like I said, for classics and historical fiction, I would definitely recommend her channel. That's Katie from Books and Things. So that's like a bonus person to write that I want to mention in this video. Okay, so the first booktuber that came to mind, because Bookspell, some of the Bookspell, is Daniel Green's channel. He reads, I think, only fantasy, and sci-fi too. He's getting more into sci-fi. But I'm not a sci-fi reader, so I mostly go to him for fantasy. And but he's not a booktuber, so maybe I could switch. So actually, now that I think about it, maybe I shouldn't count him because he doesn't consider himself a booktuber. He considers himself a YouTuber because he doesn't just talk about books anymore. So maybe I could replace Katie from Books and Things with him. And the good news is I have a Dickens book right here. Oh, and a Trollope book. Okay, so, but if I didn't count him, it would be Wheel of Time. It's his favorite series. I don't know if it's his all-time favorite series, but he just talks about the series quite a bit, and especially more so now since there's a TV show going on that is coming up. But of course, with the virus going on, it's on hold right now. But most people know this series as being kind of like the first book is very much in the vein of Lord of the Rings. But after the first book, the author does do his own thing. This is the second book in the series. Okay, so I'm always bad at giving descriptions of this book series, but it's basically about this farm boy named Rand and his friends, and they live this life, a simple life in the country. It's him and Rand and his father, and around the same time that an Aes Sedai shows up in his village, she's like a witch, shows up in his village. These mysterious creatures known as Trollocs show up and rampage and attack their village, and it turns out, and they find out from the Aes Sedai that Rand and a group of his friends, they must go with her on a journey because the bad guy might be after them, because one of them might be the chosen one. And in this world, magic can only be used by women. And when men use it, they go a little crazy. But the prophecy says that a male that possesses magic might be the one that will save their world. So that's the best I can do description-wise. But I enjoyed the first book. I'm sure there's a lot of flaws in the first book, a lot of criticisms that I don't notice because I feel like I haven't read enough adult fantasy. Like, the last couple of years, I've been just getting more and more into adult fantasy. Like, I definitely I recognize the flaws of YA more so than adult fantasy. But I personally loved it. I have at least I have book 1, book 2, obviously. I have book 3, book 4. I think I have book 5. I don't have book 6. Which I just did a tag on, where to ask how your reading was going during this time of isolation. And one of the questions actually had to do with what are some books you wish you could buy right now or borrow from the library. And I would love to get book 6 from the I would love to get book 6 of the series. Like, I'm trying to buy all the books before I get through the whole series, because I do not like having books in a series when I don't have the next book on hand, because I can't get to it. I might have to wait before I can get to it. But I do have book 11 in the series, because that was one of the first books I bought, because it actually happened to be at the roast office, and I bought it because it's like, what the heck. And that actually happened with the Temporary series, where I bought the last book in the series. Of course, at the time when I bought it, I did not realize that it was the last book of the series. I liked the sound of it, the premise. Then I realized, that was the last book. So that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to get into the Temporary series. And that's one of the ones that Jean is on this list. Jean from Jean's Bookish Thoughts. She's on here. And that series is one of hers. Which, by the way, I don't know if this would be considered cheap, because I've already read the first book in the series. And I don't know if it's supposed to be books that you have not read that you've heard of, but you have not gotten into them yet. Okay, so if you don't count him, because he can technically consider himself a YouTuber, because he doesn't just talk about books, although he mostly talks about books. Then I may as well include Katie from Books and Things. And hers is, okay, some of her favorite authors I want to check out, that I have started checking out, although one of them is one that I've already read, a few of his books. Put this here, well, actually, no, put that there, because I might talk about that, is Trollope and Dickens. She talks about, and Steve Donahue also talks about Trollope a lot, and in fact, he's doing a Trollope standalone read-along, like all Trollope standalones, because he has 2 major series, I believe. And he also has a lot of standalones, so Steve Donahue is doing a Trollope read-along of all the standalones right now. So, which I think is really cool, but I would participate, and I have one of his series, and then I have one standalone by him. So I can't really participate, unfortunately. I mean, I could have, because they did read, I think last month, the read was one that the one standalone I do have, but then I would feel a little left out and jealous, because I can't read the other standalones, because I don't have them. But Katie, like I said, is really awesome. She reads a lot of historical fiction and classics, and just particularly the way she talks about classics, especially Dickens. She does almost analysis videos. So this is the second book in one of Trollope's series, which I cannot pronounce the name of that series. And then this is David Copperfield by Dickens. I've already read Oliver Twist, A Christmas Carol, of course. Although I feel like I already knew that story before I read the book, because my dad was in the local production of the play. He was the Ghost of Christmas Present. And I've seen almost all the adaptations of it. I have not read The Afterlife of Polly Chase yet. I thought about reading that one. I might get it this Christmas, but at the same, I almost would rather get it from the library, and I think I've seen it at my library. So if by Christmas the library is open, this virus is finally, although my dad says with viruses, it could take years to find the answer to it, so it might, I don't know that'd be kind of scary if our life is like it is now for a few years. But anyway, so if the Afterlife Polly Chase is there at my library, then I might get that. But I have read and the first Dickens I ever read was A Tale of Two Cities, and I want to reread that one, and then I read Great Expectations, and I read some of his short stories, which I thought were okay, like, I think because I'm so used to his novels now, it was a bit of a disappointment to read his short stories. But this is the next one, although I am thinking about reading Bleak House by Dickens. I keep thinking about that one. And just starting over with that. I don't know if I'm going to start over with that one. I did take the bookmark out. I could start over, but I also have the last page I read marked on Goodreads. So, I don't know what I'm going to do, but yeah, so I love Katie. I love the way she, she's another one of those booktubers that I just sometimes just love listening to her. And I would listen, and if she ever narrated audiobooks, I would want to get, I would want to get one of her audiobooks if she ever narrated, because I think she has a lovely voice for that. And like I said, I love her, I love her channel and the way she talks about books, especially like classics. So yeah, so if I don't count Daniel Green, she would be my number one on this list. For authors, I want to read the books that their favorite books. Okay, I can't remember what's her favorite book by Dickens. I don't know if she's ever talked about what her favorite one is, but that's the one I had on hand, and it's the next one I'm going to read, so, Okay, so next is Jennifer Brooks, and I discovered her a couple years ago, and I think she would be one of my, if I was friends with any of the booktubers, like, as in someone I would hang out with on, in person, I think she would be one of the ones I would like to hang out in person. And we actually both live in North Carolina. I don't know where in North Carolina she lives, and I'm not going to pry, because I don't want to sound like creepy and stalkerish, but we do both live in North Carolina, so we could almost easily see each other. The problem is I don't drive. I have to rely on public transportation with my parents, and I always feel weird about there's people, like, people that I get to know on the, people that I make friends with on the internet, and on the one hand, you don't know with the internet. Like, with, YouTube, at least you see them, and you interact with them through the comments, and you're actually seeing someone talk on a video. But when you're just seeing their comments and stuff, it's a little risky. Like, with Terry, for instance, it was a little risky for me to, but then we ended up, FaceTiming one day when we first decided to get together in person. So it turned out that was a very lucky situation, but I don't think it's always lucky. So I'm a little wary of meeting people. There was one person I was friends with on Facebook that I liked her, and she seemed like, and I've seen her, on Facebook people post pictures, so you see something. And I interact with her. She's a little bit older than me, so that was the other thing. Like, her and her husband talked about us meeting in person one day, because at the time we were living in the same state. But then it was a little weird. It felt a little weird because I would either have to get there by public transport, or mommy and daddy would have to take me, and it felt weird because they're the same age as not the same age, they're a little bit younger than my parents. But it was still, they're closer to age to my parents. So it would feel like a little weird and uncomfortable for me anyway. So I was a little wary of that, for a lot of reasons. But at least with Jennifer Brooks, I've seen her face. I've seen her videos. I interact with her through the comments. So, the YouTube situation is a little bit different. Although you never know even on YouTube. But I would, I would love to meet her in person, like hang out with, but I don't know if that will ever happen. Like I said, it's the fact that I can't just drive there myself to meet her when we can't meet somewhere. It would be a little, and I don't even know if she would be comfortable with that. It's just, at the same time, I always hear about people being friends with people on BookTube, like meeting them and then getting together in person, and it's kind of like, I want that someday. I want to meet one of you guys and hang out with you in person. But it's not a simple thing for me. It's a little harder for me to get together with people, because even with Terry at first, it was a little weird because she is like 8 years older than me. So she's closer to my sister's age. In fact, she's older than my sister. Which makes it even weirder at times but, with her personality, she seems a lot closer to my age personality-wise. So anyway, let me get back to the video. Okay, so I said Jennifer Brooks, and the book I'm gonna talk about here, if I can get it without ruining this pile, is The Count of Monte Cristo. This is a French classic, and as you can see, I started this, so this might also be considered a cheat, because I've already read some of it, a good amount of it. And to me, this is progress compared to, like, before, when I first bought the book, and I attempted to read it. I got pretty far. I mean, I don't know if this is halfway or not, but, I'm at least at the point where we meet the Count. But it's a bit slow moving, and it's not always, sometimes it can seem a little tedious, and I always get the feeling of, what does this have to do with the main character? But I've been assured by Jennifer Brooks that, not directly, but the way she talked about the book in her videos, that they do have relevance. It's not just randomness, there's, when they bring up characters that seem like they have nothing to do with our main character, they do. It's just you don't find out until later. But the way Jennifer talks about this book and her reviews of it, because she's already read it and finished it, it just gets me so excited, and I always feel bad that I have not finished it, that I only gotten to this point. And it's been so long since I've read it, so it's like every time, she talks about it and brings it up, I'm like, I feel so guilty. Especially the way she talks about the book, it just makes me even more, wanting to get back into it. And I know I'll enjoy it, because when I was into it and reading it, I did enjoy it. It's not because I stopped enjoying it. It's just because, again, it's a slower book. And the author writes so much, and what I really need to do is just sit down and read a good amount of pages and get back into it. And, thinking about it now, I keep thinking, I'll probably, I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should read it today, but then when it's happening is, knock on wood, I end up not doing that, and I think about it, but then I never do, because there's so many other books I'm reading as well, but I didn't really enjoy what I've read so far. Like, this is an accomplishment for as far as I've gotten this book. I don't know if it might be halfway, or might even be possibly a little bit more. I'm like on page 526, so I'm in the 500s. I mean, it might be halfway, which would really be awesome if I was halfway. But just, this is one of the first revenge stories, and it's funny because it's now a class, and it's considered a classic, and it's considered intimidating, but there was a time when it wasn't. There was a time when it first came out that it was considered sensationalism, and people did not want to read, or they scoffed at the idea of this book. And now it's considered it has so many editions, including, like, Oxford World Classics edition. She has the same edition, but it's red instead of purple. As you can see, this is well read and well loved, and it's been put back on the shelf quite a few times. Been taken down and put back. I mean, I think that's a lot of times I think that's why books will get all a little bendy and stuff. So it's not in pristine condition anymore. And the guy on the cover is kind of cute. The guy that they used for the cover, he's cute. But anyway, yes, so I want to continue reading this one because of Jennifer Brooks. And also, Emily Fox, she's also read her edition of the book is in two books, and it's two separate books. So she's read the first book, and I know she's also someone who needs to, talks about getting back into it. I want to say her channel name is like Redhead Reader or something. I think she was the one who I mentioned The Count of Monte Cristo to, and that, she's one that, Sophie, her first name is Sophie, and something like Redheaded Reader or something to have to do with her beautiful hair color. That's her channel name, something along those lines. And she's talked about that one too. She's another person who wants to read The Count of Monte Cristo. Okay, now let me, next person is Murphy Napier, and this is kind of one that I decided at the last minute when I watched her video, because what I ended up doing is, when I realized this was the next topic, I watched these Pick 7 Booktubers, where I wanted to talk about. I looked at their favorite books, like of last year, or their all-time favorite books. So this is this is more that I just want to read the author. Like, I've read his book, Jude the Obscure, and I got most of it read, but I didn't finish it, but I counted it as a book read. But there was, like, a part of this book that had to do with something horrible happening to children, and I just couldn't. I was like, oh my god, that's like, I mean, I was warned already that his books can be depressing, but that was just too much. It was just too much, especially someone who's an aunt. I don't like seeing that kind of stuff with children, especially with what particularly happened to the kids. It was very disturbing and uncomfortable for me. And I was just like, I was very mad at Thomas Hardy. But I mean, I knew that his books are depressing. You know, I knew I was getting to. It's just that I was not expecting it to be that bad. But I still want to keep reading his books. And one of her favorite books of last year was a Thomas Hardy book, and I have it, and that is Tests of D'Urbervilles. And this book is always on classics reading list, like the top 100 books to read, or top, 20 or 50 books to read, classics-wise. I feel like I've heard the title of this book so many times, or at least I've seen the title, and at the time I wasn't interested. But, now I am more interested in Thomas Hardy's work, and I want to read more, even though I did not like Jude the Obscure. I liked most of it. I was interested in most of it. But I want to read more. I want to give Thomas Hardy another go and read more of his books. I don't want to just dismiss him because one of his books, like an aspect of the depressing part of it, upset me. It was like a little too much. I don't want to, that shouldn't be enough. That's not enough of a reason to dismiss the author. For me. And she talked about this one, how great it was, and how much she loved it. And she's someone who does a series of videos, like, where she does a separate wrap up for her classics, because a couple years ago she decided she wanted to put more emphasis and read more classics. So she decided to do separate TBRs and wrap ups of classics. And this is one of the classics she read last year. I don't know what month. And I don't really know what it's about. I'm reading the back description. It sounds like they're, this woman is from the society who's, slowly dying. It's about this one woman particularly. So I'm guessing the woman's name is Tess. And D'Urbervilles is the village or whatever, or the town. So I don't know much about it, but it's one of those ones I've heard a lot about, and this, I think this is actually one that I could have technically borrowed from my sister, but I never did. I think. I don't know. Okay, so put that over there. It doesn't cover up that book. Okay, so next, Okay, so next is Jean's Bookish Thoughts, and I do not have any of the books that I said that I wrote down as books that she's talked about. She talks about all the time that I would like to read. She constantly talks about the Discworld. It's science fiction absurdism, and I saw the movie with Martin Freeman, and I haven't seen the whole movie, but I've seen bits and pieces, and I liked what I saw so far. It looks like a fun sci-fi series. Oh wait, no, rewind, sorry, that's not Discworld, that is the other science fiction book of hers, that she talks about. So, that's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that's on here, I wrote that one down as well. I think maybe science fiction absurdism I might get into more, so that's, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Discworld is a whole different thing. It's also a little, but it is, I think it's also considered absurdism or fabulism or something. It's like a whole series of, it's one of those series where he writes a bunch of different series in one big series. I read one of his books, but it had nothing to do with Discworld. I was like, it's okay, it was kind of a compliment to Dickens, but it just felt very juvenile, and the main character was annoying. I got that one from the library. That was Dodger by, I can't think of the author's name right now. So that one was okay, but it was very much like a, you saw like a lot of like homages to a lot of Dickens' work in that one. Like Oliver Twist. I think there's a little, I want to say there was a little bit of Great Expectations in there and stuff like that. It was cute. No, not my favorite. Like I said, the main character got on my nerves. But that author, Terry Pratchett's his name, but he's mostly known for the Discworld. And it just sounds like such a cool series, but there are so many books in the series. I think My Books Million does have some of them. And I still haven't bought them, obviously, but it was one of these things where I saw them, I was like, oh, should I buy those ones? Because, I don't know if that's the ones I should start with. But it's just this really cool, crazy world of different, and on the back of a turtle that sits on 4 elephants, and it's. And actually, I have seen a trailer I saw on Tin Man, the miniseries. That's the latest Wizard that was sci-fi miniseries that was kind of another interpretation of the Wizard of Oz. I saw on that DVD there's a trailer for Hogfather, which is a kind of Terry Pratchett's version of Santa Claus in his Discworld, I think. And the trailer sounded really interesting, really cool. And Michelle Dockery was in that movie. And I remember getting really interested. And every time I see the trailer, I'm thinking about how I would love to see it. So Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Discworld, and then the third one I have. So this was one of those ones where there was a time when I never thought I would really enjoy something like the Iliad or the Odyssey. But then we studied epic poetry, 2 epic poems in a British literature class. They were okay, but I didn't love them, but I liked them well enough. And once I figured out how to read them, I got into them more. Actually, we read 3 technically, but Canterbury Tales I can't stand. Although some of the tales in Canterbury Tales were kind of funny. Once I figured out what was actually going on. And then one day I was at the library and I saw that the library did have both the Iliad and the Odyssey. And I decided, what the heck, I'll get it. I'll borrow it from the library. And for some reason, I do not know why, but I got the Odyssey first. Which is not, unless you know the story of the Iliad and the fall of Troy and all that, I don't know if you would. You might be a little confused if you read the Odyssey first, but most people probably know you shouldn't read the Odyssey first. Most people are smart enough to realize that the Odyssey comes after the Iliad. Like, the Iliad is about when Odysseus leaves his home and goes to war for Agamemnon, I think. Because his wife got stolen by Prince Paris of Troy. And the only reason why I know what happened is because I saw the movie Troy. Mostly because I want to stare at Orlando Bloom. But I also like the other actors in it. Like, like the one the actor who played Hector. He played in the movie version of Time Traveler's Wife. I can't think of his name. And I kind of like Brad Pitt. He's okay. I'm not like gaga over him, like a lot of people are, but he's a pretty good actor. So I know the basic story of Troy, And then the Odyssey is about his journey back home, and a lot of stuff happens to him. And that dude is he's a little piece of punk. Like, there's the whole chapter with the Cyclops was like, first of all, he tricks the Cyclops, but then he basically screws up his own plan and puts him and his crew in danger, all because he was dumb. And it was just so ridiculous. It's funny, but the Odyssey just reads really well, or at least this edition does that I have. I really liked it. And I got a cloth-bound edition because I realized I'm gonna have to keep rechecking this book out for the library, and I did not want to do that because you know how that I've said before that really drives me crazy. I don't like doing that. So I ended up buying it, and I decided, to splurge, and I bought the cloth-bound edition, which at first I saw the UK price and was thinking, oh, that's not that bad. Then I realized that's the UK price, not the US price. But I ended up figuring, I have it, I don't want to put it back, so I ended up buying it anyway. And plus, I'm a Books A Million member, which if and when I ever do go back to Books A Million, hopefully this, will one day be able to. Although I don't agree with the people who are protesting and be like, I want to be able to leave the house now, because we're not ready for that yet. Okay? You need to be patient. You're not going to die if you're stuck in your house all the time. I mean, yeah, it might drive you a little crazy, but it's not going to kill you to be in there for a little. Wait until we're at the peak. We're not there. We are not at the peak. We are not ready to leave the house. And it will be your fault if we get sick again. If things get worse again, and for those people who can't control themselves and can't wait any longer, need to go. I mean, of course, maybe it's easy for me to say because I'm an introvert anyway, but you know what? I would rather not die, and I would rather not this whole virus get worse. Okay? I want to be able to leave the house when we are officially when we're ready, and we know for sure everything's going to be fine again. Like, we know 100%. And no, we don't know 100% right now. Yeah, maybe they're on the verge, and although I guess it's kind of, and also, to be fair, I have my job, so maybe it is easier for me because I do have a job right now. I am one of the essential workers. And those people, they do have my sympathy, but in the long run, you might regret it if we are able to go outside, if everything opens up again, but the virus is still going on, which it is. It's not going to all of a sudden magically go away. It's going to take years for it to go away. But I guess as long as you're cautious and careful, and at least wear masks and gloves, then hopefully things will be fine in the end. But I just, it just drives me, it just drives me nuts hearing about all this. And it's hard not to think about it. That's why I think that's why I don't have a problem with my reading, because I'm trying to escape. So I'm watching movies and reading books. But anyway, so anyway, with all that being said about the Iliad and the Odyssey, one of the books that she talked about is one of her favorite books of all time is, I don't know if I'm saying it right, I think it's a play on the title of the Iliad, but it's Penelopiad. And that is Odysseus' wife Penelope, and it's her perspective on the whole what goes on in the Iliad and the Odyssey. And we know that she gets left behind, so it's not as action-packed probably. And what I know about is that a bunch of suitors show up wanting to marry her, and her son tries to get rid of them because he doesn't, he's hoping for his dad to come home. He wants to save his dad, and he does not want anyone else honing in on his mom. He doesn't want anyone else to be interested in his mother and, hooking up with her because he wants his mother to stay with his dad now. And from the Odyssey, I couldn't, I think she was just really upset, but I couldn't tell if she, was someone who enjoyed the attention or not. I don't think she did, though, because I think she was really upset about how this was affecting her son. But I think this book would provide insight into possibly how her character felt about the situation. So yeah, I don't have those books, but I would love to. I'm interested in them. Okay, so next is Olive from Book Olive, and she and the last person or, well, actually not the last person. There's 3 more people. Okay, so, okay, well, that's not how I wrote down. Olive is not who I wrote down as the next person, but I'll go ahead and talk about her since I mentioned it. Okay, so Olive is someone who loves nonfiction. She reads a lot of other genres, but she does not read fantasy as much. So when she talks about fantasy, it's good. It must be good if she talks about fantasy in a positive way. And so she talked about reading, and I was already kind of interested in this book anyway. But she sealed the deal for me, and that is Gods of Jade and Shadow. And this is a standalone, which is very rare in fantasy. Which, I mean, I love series. I'm one of those people who really love series, but I can understand. It's kind of nice to see standalones every once in a while in fantasy. This is an adult fantasy, I believe, and it's about this young girl, Cassiopeia, and actually it might be young adult, I don't know. And they live in Mexico. Her dad was a merchant or something, and she and her mom are forced to live with her mom's father, and he's this rich guy. And her and her mom, she's kind of treated like a Cinderella figure. Her cousins constantly bully her. And then one day she discovers a trunk in her grandfather's room, and she accidentally releases a Mayan god. And it turns out that she is bound to this Mayan god, and he wants to get revenge on his brother who stole his crown, essentially. So they must go on a journey to find his brother and get back his power. The king, the god, must get back his power. But the other thing is that because he and Cassiopeia are bound, he starts draining her life force and he becomes more human. But even though he's draining her life force, she ends up falling for him, especially because he becomes more human. But just, again, Olive does not read a lot of fantasy. So if she enjoyed it, then it's definitely something to consider checking out. So far, I got to the part, because I brought one with me last time we went to see my grandma, and I read as far as where Cassiopeia has released the Mayan god, and they take off, they leave, and that's as far as I got. And it's really interesting. And I like that it's set in Mexico. I love the Mexican culture. Like, one of my favorite recent Disney movies is Coco. I really like that one. And I like in fact, when we went to Florida, a couple years, I think it was last year. We went to Florida, and I hung out with Terry, and we went to downtown Disney. And we went to one of the stores. I had been meaning to get Mickey Mouse ears, because I never had them before. I mean, I had one of those cheap-looking hat things, but that got thrown away. So I wanted to get Mickey Mouse ears, and I ended up actually getting, it was in October, because it was around Halloween time, I believe, or it was sometime in autumn. And I ended up getting the mouse ears that have what looks like a skull and stuff, and it looks kind of like the whole Day of the Dead version of skeletons, which is the Mexican version of Halloween. They celebrate the death of the ancestors and them temporarily coming back. It's called so I definitely want to learn more about Mexican culture and Mayan culture, so I think this is a good place to start. And like I said, the way Olive talks about this book, it definitely made it even more engaging. Made me even more interested in this book. I believe it was her favorite book last year. And it just looks really, it sounds really great with the way she talks about it. And like I said, that's a compliment in my opinion, because she does not read a lot of fantasy. So the other book is another one that I had already been meaning to read, and that is Once Upon a River by Diane Sutterfield. I love The 13th Tale. I thought Bellman Black was kind of good. Not my favorite, but I still enjoyed it. It was very interesting. It was a little depressing. This is Once Upon a River. And again, another book that Olive talked about how great it was. And it also is another book that kind of explores the idea of people's stories. And I just read Shadow of the Wind, which also went with that theme. and it just, like, so far, and I love Diane Sutterfield's writing. And the fact that Olive loved it and thought it was a great book was definitely a compliment in my opinion. It's just, and I've read some of it, obviously a little bit of it. This is another book I took with me to my grandma's house when we stayed there, and again, sorry, I'm kind of rushing through this because I have to go to the bathroom. But I'm trying to, because I don't know how to edit videos. I'm trying to get this done. But it sounds really great, and I like this cover. Although I wish I got the cover with. I think there is one, the British cover or the hardback cover has a swan on it. I think, or swan head or something. But yeah, so those are her. Oh, and there's one more I think on here. Is there? Okay. Nope. I mean, there was one more, but I don't remember what I meant by it. It's a book that's something with an F and an S in the title, but I don't remember what that was. Okay, so next is Elliot Brooks, and the two books I picked two by her. I mean not by her. Well, actually, she is an author, and that's another one of the books that I would love to buy right now by her. It's I can't remember what it's called. I can't think of the title of it. Toil and something. I was gonna say Toil and Trouble, but that's not what it's called. Something. It's a fantasy book. But anyway, the two books by her that I chose were, well, actually three now that I think about it. First of all, she is a huge fan of Brandon Sanderson. This is one of the books that she mentions by Sanderson a lot. I have started this one, and I really like the magic system in this one, Warbreakers. It has to do with breath and color. This is one she constantly talks about. She always mentions this as a Brandon Sanderson book that is not talked about enough. And then, of course, his major magnum opus of a series, Stormlight Archives is the first book, another one that I've started. I brought it with me when we went on our cruise, but I ended up not getting very far. I mean, I don't know why. I should have just brought one book on that cruise, because there was no way I was going to get to. I should have just brought this one, but then I always have this problem where I stare at all my books. I'm like, oh, I want to bring this one. I want to bring this one too. So obviously she's a huge Brandon Sanderson fan. And then the other one of hers is Witcher. This is the second or the third book, actually, if you count the prequel, short story collections. But I also mentioned this as a book that I wanted to buy the next book of the series. I think it's Baptism of Fire. And this is about Geralt of Rivia, and he's a guy who slays monsters. So it's like kind of like Buffy meets something else, like a medieval type story. And what's interesting about this one is it's a translate work, so the writing style's a little different. It's a little off-putting, hard to get into. It's a little different. Like the monsters are a little different than all the mythical creatures and stuff. And Geralt's a very interesting, very snarky character. He's very funny. And there is a TV series. The first season just came out, and I think they're I don't know if they filmed the second season, but I think they're putting it on hold if they're working on it. The series is okay. The first season was rough, but you know what? Overall, it was pretty good, and first seasons are always rough. They still got time. Like I said, this is the next one in the series, so I need to read it. I want to read it soon, so I have an excuse to buy it. Okay! By the next book in the series, I want to buy Baptism of Fire soon, because I think that's the next one after this one. And I definitely recommend reading the short story collections first, because it kind of gives you context of this world. And then the second collection of short stories, one of the short stories, is kind of like a introduction to the overall plot. Baptisms of Fire, that's the next one I need to get. But Geralt is someone, his destiny is tied to these two people, the sorceress and Yennefer, who is his lover, and then this little girl who is, I can't remember her name. She is like, she's like the chosen one. She's meant to save the people of this world, and he's meant to kind of like be her protector and her warrior. Which is another thing I like, because I feel like Ciri is her name. I feel like she's the chosen one, while Geralt is her protector. And I like that it's not Ciri's story, it's Geralt's story. And so it's like, and I feel like, you know, it mixes up the whole kind of chosen one storyline a little bit. So those are the 3 books that Elliot Brooks loves, like Brandon Sanderson, and then with the Witcher series, which is also based on a video game. And again, she's another one, the way, well, most of these, it's the way they talk about the books that gets my interest. And then, okay, so the last person, I'm almost done, is Insert Jen from Insert Literary Pun. She's another one who doesn't read really any fantasy. She reads, like, the closest to fantasy I think she gets is, like, antiquity and stuff. Kind of like Jean from Jean's Bookish Thoughts and Olive from Book Olive, where she only reads some select types of fantasy. One of these books I don't have, actually I don't have any of these. Well, no, I have one of them. And that is Anna Karenina. This is a Russian classic by Tolstoy. I read Crime and Punishment, which is not by Tolstoy, but it's another Russian classic that I really enjoyed. And I have started War and Peace. I'm really enjoying that book. Again, it's taken a long time. It's a big book and a lot of writing. But this is Anna Karenina. I think this is Tolstoy's most beloved work, about this woman who marries, I don't know what his title, if he's like a king, a Russian king or a count or something, but then she's not entirely happy in this marriage, and she ends up having an affair with this other count dude, and it's all about that epic love story, and how everything falls apart and all that, and there's consequences to that. It's really good. At least I've heard it's really good. It's people's favorites of Tolstoy, and I love this edition. I'm such a nerd, because to me, this edition is really, like, the look of it is really cool. And it also has this in it, which I guess is an article about Tolstoy and how great he is. And there's this little stamp in here. There's this little dinosaur stamp. I think that's kind of funny. And then the other books, this is the only one, and Jen is another one of those booktubers I just love listening to her. She's so eloquently spoken, just like Olive, and just the way she speaks about books is just, it makes me want to listen to her. And and if she was like a professor at a college, I would love listening to her lectures. She's just so eloquently spoken, sounds so intelligent, and she doesn't stumble. Of course, that probably comes from practice. She doesn't say, and also she's like, I like that she's well-traveled. Like, she spent a good amount of time in, I can't remember which country, like Germany or Russia, I want to say, teaching, which I think is really cool. You know, I mean, and I've never really been to, I've been to other countries, but not to, like, study there, not to live there, just to visit. Like, my sister did that. She spent a semester in France, living in Aix-en-Provence. And I always think that's really cool if you get that opportunity. I think if you get that opportunity and you can afford it, I would recommend that. Like, spending a year in another country, you learn a lot. And have just the ability to say, I've been to this other country, and I've seen this other culture. Okay, so let me get through these quickly, because so the other one, so I read one of Elizabeth Gaskell's, her North and South novel. First I saw the miniseries, but the one that Jen talked about by Gaskell is Wives and Daughters, about, I think it's a girl with, either it's her mom or her dad, it's just her, and they marry someone else, and that person comes with their own child, and it's about the relationship between the two stepsisters and how they're complete opposites of each other, but it's about how they connect really well. And I'm someone who loves reading about sisters. As a sister myself, or reading or watching stories about sisters, I think that's so important, and I want to read more about those kinds of stories, because to me that's very important and very, because it's part of my own life. So I love, I feel like I don't see that enough or read that enough in books, and I want to read more of that. Because a lot of times books either, like Sam from Thousand Tomes had talked about how she feels like she still hasn't seen enough female friendships that dominate a story. Like, it's mostly about the romantic relationships. Well, I feel like my version of that is sisters. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stories that talk, like, a lot about romantic relationships, and I love that. But I also want to see, like Sam wants to see more friendships between females. I want to see more sister relationships between, you know. And I know there's movies like there's classics like Little Women, but I had no interest in reading the book. I attempted it, but then I ended up DNFing it. But I love the movie. At least not the most recent movie. I still have not seen that one yet. And then she talks about The Mill and the Floss. That's by George Eliot. I am currently reading Middlemarch by George Eliot, and I'm really enjoying it. And Jen has talked about The Mill and the Floss and how great it is and how it's her favorite George Eliot. And I kind of want to check it out. You know, it sounds like very interesting. I don't remember what it's about, what she said it was about, but and then the last one that she is The Crane's Dance, which kind of makes me think of Black Swan. It's about two sisters that get into ballet, that are ballet dancers. One of them has to give it up, and the other one becomes like a great, like, I don't remember. I just remember she said one of them has to give up, and it made me think of Black Swan. But that's The Crane's Dance. That was really great. And that's it. Those are all the books. Sorry, I'm just trying to rush this because I really have to go now. So if you guys like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up, and if you were able to get that last part, give me a thumbs up. If you did, I hope you did. But if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, click the bell notifications below if you want to see when I post new videos. I hope you are enjoying your reading, especially I hope you aren't struggling like a lot of people are because of what's going on in the world. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye!